A very good morning to all of you, my dear students. Let all of you have a pink health, a sound and safe state of being. So let's start our text today. Let's see something interesting. What is hidden in our text? Part 3. After lunchtime, Bepin Babu realized that he couldn't possibly carry on sitting at his desk and working. This had never happened in the 25 years he had been with the farm. He had a reputation for being a tireless and conscientious worker. Now, students, Bepin Babu had never been that much of confused, or Bepin Babu had never been in that kind of state earlier. He had been a tireless and conscientious worker. Now, conscientious, it means who is careful and correct. So, he had been a tireless and careful worker who had never done a mistake. But today, his head was in a whirl. So, his head was reeling. His head was in a state where he couldn't think of working with that much of concentration with which he had been working for last 25 years. So, after getting now back at home, back home at 2:30, Bepin Babu lay down in bed and tried to gather his wits together. He knew that it was possible to lose one's memory through an injury in the head, but he didn't know of a single instance of someone remembering everything except one particular incident, and a fairly recent and significant one at that. So he had never come across anyone who had been remembering everything but not a single incident as such, who had forgotten just a incident, one incident, and that supposed to be a very significant one, that supposed to be a very important one. So, he had never come across that kind of person. So, after coming home, he began to gather his wits together. Means, he tried to somehow gather his intelligence or gather his balance of memory as such. However, he had been pondering over that issue. He had been thinking over and over. Now see, he had always wanted to go to Ranchi, to have gone there, done things, and not to remember was something utterly impossible. So he had always been wanted to be there. He had always been wanted to do something over there. But he couldn't remember those things out which he had probably done over that place only was something utterly impossible. Absolutely impossible, okay? Completely impossible. Now, next. See, at 7:30, Bepin Babu's servant came and announced, Chuni Babu, sir, says it's very important. So Chuni Babu, sir, says it's very important. Bepin Babu knew what Chuni had come for. Chuni Lal had been at school with him. He had been having a rough time lately and had been coming to see him about a job. Bepin Babu knew it was not possible to do anything for him, and in fact told him so. But Chuni kept turning up like a bad penny. So sometimes it happens, students, that someone or the other in your life keep on turning as a bad penny. Bad penny means you don't want to accept that person as such, but that person will turn, again and again. He will visit again and again to your house or to disturb you, to irritate you, to make you annoyed. Okay. And suppose if someone's luck is running very bad, okay, and that happens with him again and again. So a kind of that person who is ever complaining, who is ever annoying, who is ever irritating, is generally known to be as a bad penny, or goes through a bad luck on and often, almost at each and every day. So that person is generally unwelcomed by anyone else or by his friends as such. So such kind of person was Chuni Lal. So Bepin Babu knew that Chuni Lal had come to him, and he knew for what Chuni Lal had come to him as such. Okay? As he knew that his friend was financially weak and he was turning to him for a job or for something that would help him economically, that would help him economically. So he turned on, or he was turning for getting economical or financial help again and again, which Bepin Babu didn't like or didn't want to entertain as such. And he was in a state in which he couldn't help him too, or he was not in a state in which he could be proved helpful, or he could help his childhood friend as such. Bepin Babu sent word that not only was it not possible for him to see Chuni now, but not in several weeks. But as soon as the servant stepped out of the room, which was making him more uncomfortable, so a stare, a kind of look continuously for some time, which was mixed with amazement, disbelief, and somewhat surprise. So, that kind of stare. Do you remember what my last job was? Asked Chunilal. So, after giving that kind of stare, after giving that kind of look to his friend, then Chunilal asked, do you remember what my last job was? So, he asked his friend, he cross-questioned his friend something, that whether he could remember about his last job or not, whether he could remember about the last thing he had engaged or he had been engaging himself for supporting himself financially or economically. Of course, you worked in a travel agency. So, then he told, means Bepin Babu had told his friend that, of course, he did remember that. Means, he told him, you worked in a travel agency. So, you worked in an agency basically where a kind of business related to tours and travels. Now, you remember that you don't remember that it was I who fixed up your railway booking for Ranchi. I went to the station to see you off. One of the fans in your compartment was not working. I got an electrician to fix it. Have you forgotten everything? Whatever is the matter with you? You don't look too well, you know. So he added fuel to the fire. He had made his friend more uncomfortable than being comforting or than being making him comfortable as such. So he had told his friend that he had gone to Ranchi and several incidents had taken place over there or in that specific trip to Ranchi. For example, one of his fans was not working and Chunilal had helped him to fix that or had helped him by bringing an electrician to fix that, to repair, to make it okay, to make it working again. So, he then said, have you forgotten everything? So whether his friend had forgotten everything or not, whatever is the matter with you, you don't look too well. So he added to his trouble. He told him that he didn't look too well. He was looking somewhat not well, somewhat very much sick or too much in trouble, unwell. Next, Bepin Babu sighed and shook his head. So he sighed and shook his head. I have been working too hard, he said at last. That must be the reason. Must see about consulting a specialist. Doubtless it was Bepin's condition which made Chunilal leave without mentioning anything about a job. So, after seeing his condition, Bepin Babu's condition, Chunilal had left without mentioning about a job or for any kind of help as such. Paresh Chandu was a young physician with a pair of bright eyes and a sharp nose. He became thoughtful when he heard about Bepin Babu's symptoms. Look, Dr. Chandu, said Bepin Babu desperately, you must cure me of this horrible illness. I can't tell you how it's affecting my work. So how it's affecting my work, I can't tell you. How it's troubling me from inside. How it is adding to my uncomfortableness. How it is making me more and more sick. I can't tell you. Dr. Chandu shook his head. You know what, Mr. Choudhury? He said. I have never had to deal with a case such as yours. Frankly, this is quite outside my field of experience. But I have one suggestion. I don't know if it will work, but it's worth a try. It can do no harm. Bepin Babu leaned forward anxiously. So he bent forward somewhat curiously. As far as I can make out, said Dr. Chandu, and I think you are of the same opinion, you must have been to Ranchi. And due to some unknown reason, the entire episode has slipped out of your mind. What I suggest is that you go to Ranchi once again. The sight of the place may remind you of your trip. This is not impossible. That you may remind again, okay, what you have forgotten. So, more than that, I cannot do at the moment. So, Dr. Chandu had told him. Dr. Chandu had reflected his helplessness, that only he could suggest him to visit Ranchi once again so that he could remember what had slipped out of his mind. He was also of the same opinion that Bepin Babu was somewhat pondering upon, that the whole episode somewhat slipped out of his mind. However, more than that I cannot do at the moment. So he reflected his helplessness, that he couldn't help his patient more than this. I'm prescribing a nerve tonic and a tranquilizer. Sleep is essential, or the symptoms will get more pronounced. So, if you are not getting adequate sleep, if you are falling short of getting at least the amount of sleep which is necessary for keeping your health intact, then you may lose many memories as such, or you will lose your memory as such. The symptoms of your illness, of your mental illness, will get more prominent, will get more seen, or will be, more seen as such, will get more pronounced, more reflected as such. Bipin Babu felt somewhat better the next morning. After breakfast, he rang off his office, gave some instructions, and then procured a first-class ticket for Ranchi for the same evening. So he got a ticket for himself for visiting Ranchi in order to clear his doubts.